Hello, welcome to the Cube Pod, episode 124. I'm John Furrier with Dave Vellante for the weekly podcast. Dave, salute position.
Hello,
salute
John.
to you.
We say,
in Boston.
brother.
We're going to see each other in Barcelona for MWC, no longer called Mobile World Congress, now called MWC. Got a big week ahead. Hyperconvergence at the edges will be a big topic on the Cube. 3.5 days of live streaming all week. We have a bunch of activations, a lot of things happening. So it should be fun. Should be a fun trip.
Yeah. MWC used to be Mobile World Congress. RSA is now RSAC, aka conference. It's like, right? These legacy, like long-term legacy in a good way conferences. They just shorten it up, right? It's like Dunkin' Donuts, just Dunkin'.
Yeah, Dunkin'. Double D. All right, well, Dave, we have tons of stuff to talk about and unpack. Obviously, the title of this week is AI Euphoria versus Economic Reality. The money keeps flying. Investors are skeptical. Earnings reactions are brutal. SaaS apocalypse is still happening, lingering. AI impact may be overstated, some say, yet the capital deployment is historic. And no other news other than the AWS dropping $50 billion into OpenAI, I thought was a phenomenal number. Okay, OpenAI raising $110 billion at a $730 billion valuation. Amazon stepping up. Remember, Jassy said he's going to put $200 billion in capex this year, so this is 50 of it. I saw him on Squawk Box with Sam Altman. You know, he's saying, hey, this was in the numbers. And so, yeah, this is part of the 50 of the 200 billion coming. No slowing capital down. And what's interesting is that they're also running on Trainium, and also it's OpenAI Frontier running on Trainium.
That's part of the deal.
OpenAI's API runs on Azure. So, you know, OpenAI is doing the rounds, got the tin cup out, collecting cash from all the hyperscalers.
You know how I feel about
super cycle, Dave. This is what a super cycle looks like.
So 15 billion of that 50 is guaranteed, right? No milestones. The other 35 has milestones attached to it. And of course, look at it. You're going to commit 50 billion. You better use our Trainium, because we got to get some love for Trainium and try to get the volume up. You know how I feel about that whether it's Trainium or AMD or TPUs that, you know, are going to Meta, et cetera, they're there to fill the gap that Nvidia can't fill because they're supply constrained. But as you know how I feel about it, and we heard this from the Nvidia earnings call, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but they're going to have the lowest cost per token. And but there's so much demand that you need these alternatives, and the market's just so huge. But with a lot of red behind you, John.
I said market got crushed today. It's down from the start. The option floor just closed. You know, it was interesting. If you look at the news, right? In fact, I made a comment to Matt Garman on his LinkedIn. You know, when I first interviewed Matt Garman, when he took over the helm for Andy Jassy, you know, I asked him directly, I think you actually gave me this question, asked him if he's going to get in the OpenAI. Would he sell OpenAI? Yes. And I asked him, and he said, sure, we'd love to have them on Bedrock. We believe in open choice. He hasn't wavered. I mean, in fact, they've extended this relationship. It's a deeper partnership. So Amazon has not wavered. And you can throw a lot of tomatoes then for all different reasons, whether it's the layoffs, this or that. They are staying on their path. They want to provide the most open, choice-driven system. And hearing Andy Jassy talk about this is clear, knowing Andy and the history of AWS. They look at OpenAI as just another successful ecosystem partner potentially out there. And of course, they're investing $50 billion into it, but that's going to cover a lot of CapEx. And they get the #1 training model working on Trainium, okay? And they got Anthropic on the enterprise. So, you know, brilliance on AWS. And
what do you mean the #1 training model? What are you talking about?
Trainium. The #1 model that OpenAI, I think OpenAI, I'd consider them #1. They're the number one model,
#1 foundation, frontier model. Got it.
Frontier model running on Trainium. So again, this is what they were pumping up at reInvent, and you know, Dave Brown, and the executives were all telling me, like, look, we are going to see improvements, and Matt Garman laid it out there. They believe that they have an economic advantage, and you know how big these numbers are, Dave. So, any kind of savings is just going to make it great. So, I think we're going to continue to see AWS and Azure and Google and the big clouds start building tier one services and the tier two, tier three services where you're going to get in the major cloud, their core infrastructure, you'll get the tier one stuff. Then there'll be tier two.
And did you hear in the earnings call that Nvidia, Jensen had a little nugget. In Q4, we announced that we will enable AWS with NVLink to integrate with their custom silicon. Did you catch that?
I did not.
So yes, so Nvidia is going to allow AWS Trainium and NVLink 72. I don't know if it's 72 or NVLink InfiniBand to integrate. Remember when we interviewed Jassy 2 years ago, he told us that we're using our own network on, I think he said on GPUs, on NVIDIA GPUs. Now they're flipping that. So it's like two-way love. And this is the constraint that TPUs have, is the networking piece. And that, it all comes back to Mellanox, doesn't it? And networking. Amazing.
Networking made NVIDIA successful. The chips made NVIDIA successful. And, we've been seeing this, and we're going to be talking about it next week at MWC. The networking, as you extend out from these AI factories and these super clouds, these monster hyperscalers, whether it's AWS, Google, Azure, or CoreWeave, or Nebius, or Lambda, you're going to start to see, distributed computing paradigms where the edge is going to be really in play. And what the edge doesn't have, and they don't have an InfiniBand, they don't have interconnects to the level of the density of these super AI factories. So if you put an AI factory pre-built at the edge, whether it's a DGX box or a little bit bigger footprint, if it's a bigger cabinet, say a telco base station, they have tons of infrastructure, they got power, they got connectivity. The networking of the networks from the telecom and the carriers, I think, will be instrumental for bringing true AI intelligence to the edge.
Well,
and that means it has to look like an interconnected system, tightly coupled and designed to allow the radios and the wireless to talk to each other, independent of the vendor. I mean, and that's what the AI factories could do. I'm super pumped about this because it's so clear to me, Dave. And everyone I talked to Lumen this week. I talked with folks in the industry, some other edge providers like Axelera, and they're all like, yeah, can't happen fast enough. The question is, will it? So that's going to be, and I think NVIDIA is going to force this because they are the AI player that brings AI to things. So I wouldn't be surprised.
You brought up MWC, and you remember well, a couple of years ago, we had Charlie Kawwas from NVIDIA. He runs NVIDIA's semiconductor group. And at the time, NVIDIA was, of course, touting, Broadcom. I said NVIDIA. Charlie Kawwas runs Broadcom semiconductor group. But they were touting Ethernet as the play. Ethernet will win. All the hyperscalers using Ethernet. Broadcom, of course, big Ethernet proponent. Now, what we've seen, fast forward a couple of years later, Spectrum X from NVIDIA kicking ass. NVIDIA claims it's the #1 networking company by revenue, which is just amazing. I think they made that claim at least 1 quarter ago, maybe 2 quarters ago. So their Ethernet is killing it. Spectrum X, remember, scale up, scale across, scale up, scale out, scale across. Spectrum X Ethernet is a real key part of that. I mean, they've got it covered on all fronts. It's just amazing what's going on there. And of course, stock getting crushed down to, I think, 177 after just an amazing quarter. It was interesting. I don't know if we're going to talk about NVIDIA later, but NVIDIA crushes its quarter, stock drops. Dell, which is basically a distribution channel for NVIDIA now. I mean, it's basically the top NVIDIA, traditional.
They had a monster quarter.
Server, yeah, right. Monster quarter. The stock is up. I think it closed up 19% today. So it's really interesting to see how the street pukes on NVIDIA's great quarter. Dell, who's hitched its wagon to NVIDIA, and of course it's got Intel and AMD and others, but really it's like the premier, server vendor for NVIDIA GPUs, and it stock went crazy today. I mean, so
And
good for Dell.
the SaaS apocalypse is still happening. If you look at the loss of value for SaaS companies, the total's mounting close to 1.5 trillion and counting. Okay,
Wow.
and that's on the market devaluation of that. Yet billions and billions of dollars are flying everywhere. OpenAI is 110 billion raised at a $730 billion valuation. We just
Is
chatted
that a
about
pre?
that.
Is that a pre-money? That's pre-money, right?
Yes, pre-money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Meta is doing $100 billion chip deal with AMD, and reportedly doing a multi-billion dollar chip deal with Google for TPUs. So, you got literally hundreds of billions of dollars just from OpenAI, AWS, Google, AMD, Nvidia around that. Countless vertical AI companies getting sizable rounds. So this is popping. So you got the
So
SaaS implosion, and you got the AI infrastructure tsunami of investments, and then you got the little sidecar conversation of this Anthropic kerfuffle with the government. The Department of Defense essentially threatened to will shut them down by today. And Trump, I just saw in the Wall Street Journal, I saw you get in the paper, but online they just said Trump's going to basically delist.
oh, I don't see that here, John. I don't see it here.
That's today's news. That's yesterday's news, Dave. That's yesterday's news. So
Let me
today,
check.
the breaking headline on WSJ Digital: Trump will end the government use of Anthropic's AI models. So
wow,
remember
that's
when
the first
Trump?
story. Yeah.
Remember when Trump, tried to interfere with the Jedi contract with AWS? Bezos, we'll check into this. Apparently, there's some people talking about it. It was a smear campaign. Okay, we outed that whole thing. I did, but
wow,
Trump's just throwing red meat in this. So
good
this is going to
be
for
Anthropic holding its to its its ethics, but.
Well,
This may help my prediction.
I have a scoop on that too.
But this may help my prediction that OpenAI will exit the year with more enterprise revenue than Anthropic. Maybe they'll get the government contract, but right now Anthropic's
the
looking
exclusive
pretty good.
Story underneath that is OpenAI is working on a Pentagon deal. Duh. So but here's the scoop on Dario and the Department of Defense. People are like, oh yeah, he's just anti-war. No, he knows that AI is got some serious issues. And his only caveat, according to my sources in Washington, the deal is that he wants the government to have a human in the loop on all AI, no autonomous. And when asked, my source said, he said, I know how powerful it is, and I don't want to sell it. So he's essentially knowing what they don't know. Okay. And who do you trust here? I think I trust Dario on this one. So the nuance there is that the Department of Defense is trying to get all the software so they can play with it themselves and get autonomous war machine going. So his deal was you can only sell with a human in the loop, and that's what the standoff was. So according to my sources, that was the riff right there. That was the rub. So that's a scoop right here in the CUBE pod.
Dario doesn't want the government doing illegal surveillance of people with its technology, and it doesn't want
angle.
It doesn't want AI, autonomously killing people. That's what it's basically saying. You can't. Our terms of service say you can't kill people with our AI. And Pete Hegseth is like, well, F you. The whole idea is we're going to kill people.
The problem is also the AI is not that good yet. I mean, that's what he's basically saying. It's not so much the deaths.
Of course, but now
that's
Alex Karp,
according to my sources.
By the way, Alex Karp, to your first point, would say, look, if you want an audit trail and you want to be able to see what's happening, we are the best platform for that. So, we're actually putting in protections around surveillance. His logic is basically because they have, audit trails and provenance and you can find out who did what, when, where, that Palantir is actually the most safe and governed platform. Now, it can be used in other ways by
according to Kim.com, they got hacked last week, so we'll see about that. They denied it. All right, so a lot of money flowing.
Wait, before you go on. So I wanted to, we changed subjects here, but Claude Cowork is what has taken the market down. And you're talking about all these alternatives to Nvidia. people are saying so what's the market telling us? They're saying this is crazy. We don't understand where all this money is going and what the return is and what the monetization looks like. We're really worried about jobs. Everybody's going to get laid off and nobody's going to have any money to buy stuff. And we don't get what's happening with with Nvidia because they get all this competition, even though they're doing well. What's your take on what the market's telling us?
I mean, I think the market's telling us that they are confused. My big takeaway from the SaaS of Copilot was that they don't understand the gap between AI value and the AI infrastructure build out. So, like I said, it's contradictory. SaaS companies getting killed to the tune of $1.5 trillion in valuation. That's literally, the market, right? That's people, average stockholders and investors getting crushed if they had those stocks. So a little bit of sell-off, this panic there. But the panic is unwarranted, in my opinion, because these AI factories are slow rolling them. They're not getting built fast enough, so that could mitigate that piece. But two, the infrastructure is being funded in such a huge way that once the infrastructure is up and running, the demand for AI will continue to fly. And I think that you'll see more practical applications. In fact, this week here at the NYSE, one of the editorial takeaways this week was a lot more real world examples around agents. There's more real world examples around how people are thinking and framing AI for their business strategy. More profit, less hiring. And the entire KPIs are changing for companies, the key performance indicators. And so metrics are changing. Had a long chat with Dope Security founder, Cal Berkeley grad here, Kamal in theCUBE. And we were talking about this. The old standard benchmark for growth was hiring. We have hired more people. That is no longer the standard for hyper growth companies. Yeah, sure, you want to add people, but not at the rate as a key performance indicator. So in fact, people are getting dissed for not hiring or laying off. Square, Jack Dorsey's company, now called Block, is laying off 40% of its staff.
So
that might be a little bit of a hand waving, like, yeah, using AI as an excuse. And granted, they did overhire. He did say they overhired during the pandemic and COVID. But the metric is profit. And what's happening is that the software is so good now that the productivity is so good, you can do things that used to take 6 months now in 6 days. 1 year, 2 months. So the work product of the humans, the superpowers, are accelerating. So that's why every company is doing business model transformation. So I think, to me, that's the big story this week. And I think the funding of the infrastructure, we just rattled off 300 billion between Meta, Google, and Amazon and OpenAI right there. There's still more counting. That gap between the AI application is not understood. So I think the market's reacting to the comment by Anthropic that said we can build COBOL in a day. You had a clever post on X I saw that said, use X's Grok AI and say, build me a COBOL, mainframe replacement. And it was tongue in cheek, but it was funny as hell because it's so true. You can't vibe code your way to building a mainframe, which is the Z platform that IBM has got decades of trajectory involved in. It's like, are you kidding me?
Grok got it. Grok was like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
Vellante, it got it immediately. That was a joke. So.
Grok was smarter than half the market. So this is again, it's like again, Wall Street does not understand the AI yet. Okay. And I can tell you that from being here and basically living in the studio. They understand, durability, they understand, risk management and returns. But what they don't understand is what's now is like a very wild, chaotic news cycle. New announcements, new model comes out, new chip. They can't even keep track of Rubin, Blackwell. What is InfiniBand? Like, no one gets that. No one actually understands it, right? So they want to start seeing stuff on the scoreboard. They want to see indicators. So, haymakers come out and they just jump on it. I'm like, oh my God, the end of SaaS as we know it. Nothing could be further from the truth. SaaS will not die. It'll evolve to being AI native front end with back office, moats like data, system of record, and other things. The products will change, and it's very clear that the success one is very simple. If you don't have a product that's aligned with the current zeitgeist and the culture and what the user experience is, you're dead in the water. I use the example of the iPod to iPhone. The iPod was the #1 selling product for Apple, and Steve Jobs still demanded to build the iPhone. Why? He collapsed music player, computer, telephone into one thing with an app store, and that changed the game. That is multifunctional, better product, killed the number one revenue stream for the company at that time to go after it. Now, Nokia and RIM BlackBerry had all the same capabilities to do the same thing. They just didn't. They died. That's what's going to happen with AI. AI will have the same pattern. It'll happen very fast, faster, but it's simply build a better product, Salesforce. And that's what they're trying to do. Build a better product, Workday. That's what they're trying to do. If they don't, they're going to be dead,
that's
dead in the
true.
water.
But there's another nuance here that we covered, George and I covered in our breaking analysis this week. Is you remember when Nadella said that SaaS is going to just collapse into a bunch of agents that sit on top of CRUD databases? Remember that? And he was trolling Benioff because Benioff had called Copilot the next Clippy. Well, it looks like Nadella was kind of right, but only for his single user apps like Office. And this is like creating a huge threat to the company because if you saw what Claude Cowork did, Claude Cowork basically used the file structure of Excel. Because remember, Microsoft opened that up for Excel, PowerPoint, and Word years ago. The file formats, they opened them up. So Claude Cowork just went in, used that, and did everything that the user needed to do. And it only used Office to actually produce the outputs. So it's like holy crap, that what his prediction, Satya's prediction, is actually true, but it's a threat. It makes his single user software vulnerable. So Microsoft has to, we think, completely rethink its architecture and a whole new layer for how it does personal productivity apps. It's different from multi-user. Multi-user, you need the 4D map and the cognitive layer and the system of intelligence, much, much more complicated. But for single user apps, Microsoft has to shift from an application mindset to a platform mindset. And then they're going to build in governance and security and data management. And that's going to be kind of hidden as part of the platform. And that's what they're going to have to monetize, as opposed to what they were thinking about doing was taking Copilot and then putting it inside of all these apps and charging, a per seat for doing that. That market's going to puke. It already is on that model. So that's kind of an interesting little twist to the SaaSpocalypse. But Microsoft's smart. They're going to figure this out. They are figuring it out. And
the one thing, that's a good point. One thing I would add, you reminded me of a good point to make, which is the other wild card for the System Z and all these kind of SaaS potential targets that will die. The only thing that could be a wild card on this, Dave, is the ability to migrate. Let's just take Salesforce, for instance. If there was a tool to migrate all your stuff in Salesforce with one click of a clone button, clone it and ship it to a cloud, or ship it to another software layer that was written for it, that's an extinction event potentially. So I think that's going at the root of the crown jewels, which is the data. So I think migrations are going to be very important to think through. Even if you do port anything, you know how hard it is. I mean, people have been trying to migrate off VMware for years, and they stay with it. So I think the operational moats are going to be very key, and the data moats. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that goes.
But here's the thing: that data, where's that data, and where's the process in the business law? Where's that live? It lives in a database. Okay, and a lot of the application code was developed to be able to access that data, but also to recover from failures. And it was a workflow associated with that. But so that, to your point, LLMs will have potential access to that data, maybe not as a public LLM, but one that gets, privately, and whether it's a VPC or done on-prem, it'll get access to that data, and a whole new cognitive surface will emerge. We call it the system of intelligence, and there's some other names for it. So what's going to be interesting, John, is if I'm Salesforce. So remember, Salesforce tried to do its own model, and OpenAI and Anthropic, they're blowing that away. I mean, the frontier models are just going to be the best. Okay, so what the Salesforce and ServiceNow will do, we think, is they'll partner up with those guys. Say, look, let's partner up. You do what you do well, we'll do what we do well, and we'll create this sort of new system of intelligence, and we'll go to market together, or then maybe they'll OEM it. But but the idea that you're going to take, smaller language models and build your own, that'll happen at the edge for sure. But these SaaS companies got to move, and they got to move fast. And I think they are moving fast.
Yeah.
I mean, Salesforce, I thought, had a pretty good quarter, even though it got killed. But they're in the classic new wave conundrum where the growth of the old and the size of the growth of the new and the size of the new isn't
Yeah.
enough to offset the decline of the old, and they're in that. And that's why the market's so confused right now. We always see this. We saw it with PCs, mainframe to PCs. We saw it with the internet bubble popping, and there's always that confusion as to where do I place my bets. I don't want to spend too much on old because new is coming, but new
Yeah.
doesn't work as well yet. So let's just
Well, let's
confusing.
go. Let's look at the markets. Okay, let's look at the markets right now. Okay, the earnings that you're kind of hinting. You mentioned Nvidia, you mentioned Dell. I mean, the earnings are good, but the stocks aren't, Dave, right? So this is
Yeah.
good is no longer good enough. Nvidia beats again. Data center revenues up 75%. Stock still under pressure.
Gross
Snowflake
margins
holds up.
75%, better than expected. Throwing off tons of cash, right? I mean, everything was positive with
Yeah,
Nvidia.
we'll come back to Nvidia, 'cause it's worth doing a drill down. Snowflake held up. Workday slumps on weak guidance. Salesforce beats, but investors are skeptical. The SaaS Coppels thing. HP hurt by memory cost surge. They're getting panicky. Yet there's one guy that's immune to all this. Michael Dell.
Michael Dell, I know. It's
Michael
unbelievable.
Dell. AI
Well-
factories are real. Up 39% in revenue. Memory shortages, didn't matter. PC.
Oh, I got thoughts on
AI
that.
server combo playing well for them. Infrastructure is winning. The application layer under pressure, Dave. So again,
Well, but so your point about Snowflake holding up. Snowflake accelerated product growth to 30%, and so product revenue to 30%, and so that was a real positive. The only negative in Snowflake was they had a little bit of pressure on their free cash flow because of the Observe acquisition, Jeremy's company, but they got great AI ML momentum. And Salesforce, like I say, I mean they had 169% growth in agent force, $800 million in the quarter.
and
But
think about how new that is too.
right is right. But to my point about old versus new, their revenue was $11 billion in the quarter. 12% growth, not enough. People want more growth. You heard Benioff talking to Kramer. We're going to be 42 billion. He goes, when I first talked to you, Jim, we were $1 billion. We've grown 42x. So he's like, what do you want? But so I think
He's got a good point. I mean, Benioff's got a good point. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, he's getting hammered because everyone's trying to throw stones at Salesforce because, it was easy to throw, rocks at them maybe a decade ago when they were basically Salesforce, but they've done so many acquisitions, they've retooled. They have the ultimate moats, and they turned off Slack access for the frontier models too. So they're going to own the Slack, which is like it's the bloodstream of an organization. It's all the metadata. It's off the charts. I've interviewed them on theCUBE, the leaders from Slack, and they're like, we love this, a data dream scenario for Slack. And I think Slack's a secret weapon. I think the system of record could be abstracted away. And I think Salesforce could create, with the same advantages of the people that are so-called going to kill them, they could use that same technology to make their product better. So, they have an iPhone moment. I think if I was going to talk to Mark Benioff, I would say, remember when Steve Jobs mentored you? He's got that story where Jobs mentored him on an app store. Well,
Yep.
I would say to Mark, take a playbook out of Jobs' as world and make the iPhone like integrated super product from all the Salesforce stuff, and then put Slack in there as the connective tissue, and you'll win the AI game. That's what I would do, because they always had that piece part acquisition strategy, kind of like Cisco and the Internet 1.0. No one talked to each other. They had different fiefdoms, different stovepipes, as you say. That can be completely eliminated with an abstraction layer. And that's what AI could do.
There's Tableau in there and the MuleSoft underneath. But to me, the issue, the linchpin for Salesforce, in my view, is their data cloud and that whole system of intelligence, that cognitive layer that they're building, where all the context is coming from. So that's where they got to focus their investments. And the thing about Salesforce, I mean, the customers are pissed off, like they were pissed off at Oracle with their pricing model. I think we've talked about this. So they'll work through that. SaaS pricing the seat-based SaaS pricing is under attack. That's, I think, a big part of the SaaS apocalypse right now is seat-based pricing doesn't apply to the AI era. It's going to be outcome-based pricing. Right now, it's basically like cell phone minutes or gigabytes. It's like, tokens. And so it's really confusing right now how the pricing is going to show up. Outcome-based pricing, well, what is that? Is that an end-to-end workflow? How many tokens does it take to get to that workflow? So that's right now causing a lot of the confusion. But I still believe that Salesforce and Benioff is a company that's going to make it through for sure. Well, for sure. I really believe it because he's a visionary, founder-led CEO. I mean, you know how we feel about that, John. I think they're doing the work. ServiceNow is interesting. Workday, it's interesting that Carl, did you see Carl on CNBC? He was on CNBC kind of sweating. He looked like Nixon a little bit with, in the interviews. We love Carl Eschenbach. He's a friend, but he was like, we're not seeing that in the market. We're kicking ass. Blah, blah. And then they basically, Anil comes in, they're getting a new CEO, and the quarter wasn't that great. Now, maybe that's a cleansing for the new CEO. Could be. They're not stupid. They may say, hey, let's just push it into next quarter and then, come out, smoking. But it's funny to see Carl's reaction there and then the immediate aftermath of that interview. So, we know Carl. We like Carl, and he's a top.
Well, I mean, again, back to my
operator.
philosophy is they got to get the product. I mean, it's all about product transition in the AI era. And, while the infrastructure is being built out, it's not for the faint of heart. If you don't have the management chops and the expertise, it's not going to be easy, right? So, let's look at Michael Dell. These guys figured it out because we were with Dell the whole way. Remember, go back 7 years ago and just go the past 4 years since we started talking to them about AI Factory before Jensen even uttered the word.
About Dell.
Okay, they have Apex Cloud.
But look at their business model. I mean, you think about Dell. They've got I don't know, high single digit, low double digit operating margins, right? I mean, it's not, compare that to Cisco. I mean, Cisco's got this great business, mid 60% gross margins and, okay, great. But there's Dell, 100 now, well over $100 billion company. You got the best supply chain in the business. The whole NAND pricing thing. I think NAND pricing can actually be a benefit to Dell, kind of like pricing was during COVID, where it benefited companies who could actually manage the supply chain. And I think that Dell is proving that. So it's got like this business model that nobody wants to have, but they figured it out. I mean, I'd love to have that business model. Everybody would love to have, but nobody wants to attack it. The moat is the business model itself. Hey, we're going to take a low margin business model. We're going to win on supply chain, and we're going to engineer, GPUs into the system so they don't melt. We're going to get to market really fast. We got this client business, we got this server business, we got this storage business that we bought from EMC, and we cut out all the costs. We optimized the go-to-market. We got rid of all those expensive storage controllers, and we're using our own servers as the storage controller, essentially. And gross margins aren't as high as they used to be, but they're still way better than the crappy gross margins that we get in PCs and servers. So anything we do in storage is gravy. And so imagine because they got a storage cycle coming up this year. Imagine when storage kicks in, and imagine if the PC cycle kicks in. And AI server, growth continues. We've never seen Dell on all fronts, fire like that. If that happens, plus they send so much cash back to their shareholders through stock repurchases and dividends. It's an unbelievable machine that the barrier to entry is huge because how do you build that? It's taken 40, 50 years to build that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, the trajectory, that's called economies of scale. I mean, in Jassie's compression algorithm line, you can't, there's no compression algorithm for experience.
One other thing. They're so big that they can apply AI internally. It dropped cash right to the bottom line. I mean, so they're back to close to their all-time high again. I mean, it's just like, wow. Whereas everybody else is freaking out, the SaaS apocalypse and look at Palantir's getting crushed. I mean, anything to do with software, although we were at VAST this week and they're all software. And of course they're a private company and doing great.
Yeah, I saw the videos. Looks like they had all the top people there. All of our tribe was there. All the AI infrastructure people. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I
all the
think
people, John. Sorry, sorry to interrupt. All the people that you interviewed at the New York Stock Exchange before anybody heard of them, right? I mean, CoreWeave, Nebius, Lambda. I had
yeah,
Crusoe on with Chase Lockbill. Nobody ever heard of these companies, right?
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, the next thing you
yeah,
know, they're on CNBC. We're like a feeder
yeah.
for the market.
Well, we're like we're discoverers. We're like just
Yeah.
discover the new talent and identify because we see things early. I mean, we were physical AI before anyone was talking about it. Now it's the hottest thing going on. Robotics, agents. We were on agents 2 years ago in a deep way. And again, I think the open source stuff we were there too. Linux Foundation. Just saw a note from Frank Fay on our team. Jim Zemlin wants to come in, so he runs the foundation. Linux and open source is going to continue to be, all the elements are right in front of us. I mean, the world spun in the cube's direction in the past decade. We were just grinding away on enterprise and emerging tech, but in comes the hybrid data center, edge, big data. Hadoop turns into real data with data lakes, Databricks, Snowflake, generative AI. It really has been quite a ride over the past 15 years. If you look at where we are today, it's actually incredible. The tooling is so
Well,
good.
and what you're doing with
The
crypto
AI is
too.
so good.
Crypto's in the tank right now, but watch what happens with the banking system, the financial system, and the crypto, the
If you're not
blockchain
buying Bitcoin and
rails.
Ethereum right now, people, I tell my friends, if you're not buying Ethereum and Bitcoin right now, you're crazy because if you don't think it's going to go up, you're basically betting against the macro trend. Will there be a digital convergence of cryptocurrency with the physical world? Yes, real world assets are already coming on the chain. You're seeing the financial systems adopting crypto infrastructure. So the AI infrastructure build out today is a tell sign that the crypto infrastructure will take a similar path, maybe not as frothy, but it will be just as important because that enablement will accelerate value, not disrupt, accelerate. The disruption is the acceleration because the acceleration will allow people to blow past incumbents, like we're talking about the AI SaaS apocalypse. I mean, you only die if you don't adapt, and that's it. So it's very clear that what the formula is. And again, Steve Jobs had it: iPhone, iPod. I mean, some companies would say, "No, why would you kill our number one product?" People love that. They love the iPod. Yeah, but they haven't seen the iPhone, and that's what he knew. This is kind of the strategy execution we're seeing, and that's why Jensen said last month in San Francisco things haven't been spreadsheeted yet, meaning they haven't been figured out in the models because it's coming to the table
Yeah,
so
yeah,
fast.
yeah. You said don't worry
So,
about ROI. Stop trying to find the ROI. Just
well, that's a little bit of hand waving, but I do kind
invest.
of agree with him. But he said at the DC summit that he had, adoption is a huge factor because of two things. One, they use his product, but the learnings that they get out of the AI deployments compound, right? He didn't say that, I sort of my word, but I think, the compounded value of learning AI is the key. That's why you see all the people that are successful use it all the
Oh,
time.
we have
And
models on
then,
this, John. We have models on this. Furrier has built a model that shows just that. Like if I think a couple of cube pods we talked about not trying to get all your data house in order and worrying about that before you spend on AI. No, let AI help get the data house in order, help cleanse the data, help shape the data, help harmonize the data. And what Flair's modeled, and this is based on talking to companies like JPM and Walmart and Lilly and Capital One and others, that what they found is okay, the first AI project was hard. It might took a while, maybe a year to really get right. And then the second one went faster, and the third one, and the fourth one, the fifth one. And then they got on this flywheel. You get to 19 or 20, and then you're taking those learnings to the exact point, and you're bringing it across the enterprise. And so it confers advantage and puts you on that curve, on that flywheel, on that learning curve. And these companies are way ahead of the game. Now, the challenge is, what about everybody else that doesn't have, 1,000 AI engineers? And that's where we think Anthropic and OpenAI and these partnerships are going to come in and really start to hit the market, by mid
yeah.
2026, so that mainstream enterprises can start to get that elusive ROI.
Yeah, and I think you'll see services too. You'll see these bigger companies, the platforms provide as a service like mechanisms. We were covering that with our MCP coverage of Raphael's post around agents, network effects, the new models coming out. I mean, it's just interesting that the positioning of all the OpenAI stuff and the Dario, Anthropic. I think the OpenAI announcement with Amazon, the Anthropic war with the DoD, Department of Defense, really illustrates what we talked about last time about the difference between the two companies. I mean, look at the heavyweight battle going on between Anthropic and OpenAI. If you're Anthropic and you just basically get kicked out of the government or had a Mexican standoff with them and stared them down and didn't blink, OpenAI just walks in and gets government contracts. Okay, and then there's the whole defense piece with China owning our own AI. So I find that Anthropic government, showdown to be very interesting from a policy standpoint, because it begs the question, what is the right? And do you trust the government? Basically he's saying, I don't trust you. I wouldn't trust them either, but the NSA's got chops. It's not like the government doesn't know what they're doing. So what don't we know there is my question.
There's a lot we don't know, I'm sure.
From my sources, they tell me that he said, if you knew what I knew, this is Dario speaking to the DoD, I'm paraphrasing. If you knew what I do, you'd never make this autonomous. We know things can go off the rails very quickly. So basically, it's not yet matured enough to be fully autonomous missile systems or defense systems. I kind of agree with that. Now I wouldn't play hardball with the defense. He just wants to make sure the humans are in the loop. That's what I heard. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know what your take is on that, but
I like the way that
Sam Altman's got no morals. He's saying, I'll sign up. I'll take that win.
I like the way Jensen phrased it. It's you want AI in the loop, right? You want AI in the loop. And that to me is the right model. You got humans that are using AI, not the other way around. So there's certain things. Automation is always
is it model performance or political leverage? That's the question. You just basically brought up I'm not disagreeing with Jensen, but like he's just basically being like what we'd like, which is technical. Hey, let the model do the talking, or is this political leverage? We don't know what we don't know in these reports. I don't know. I looked at Axios reports and it seemed a little bit off from my reporting, but they have people down the streets, but I look deeper probably than they are in some of the contacts. But what's the issue?
The dissonance? What's the dissonance with Axios? I'm not connected.
Everyone went to the whole Palantir side of it, when it really was less about Palantir, more about stable AI.
What Palantir? What about Palantir? But using Palantir to surveil?
No, the Anthropic thing kind of like jumped on the whole thing about Palantir. It really had nothing. The Anthropic thing had nothing to do with Palantir. There was some mention of it, but it was
explain. What I don't understand.
The other press were like going after the Anthropic thing. See, Palantir's evil. They pivoted. They conflated. Some of the reports were conflating, the real issue with Anthropic, which is, I don't want you using my AI autonomously. It's not ready. Or any AI for that matter. But again, he's done these things in the past, and OpenAI stepped up to the table and showed that it can work. So we don't know what we don't know. Again, that's the key takeaway for me, is that, if models are going to decide the performance, like you said, Jensen, then this political leverage has to be out of the way. It's noise.
But again, I think but my point about Jensen was it's not humans in the loop. It's AI in the loop. So it's humans that are using AI to guide whatever missiles, combat, to surveil. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of automation, a lot of agents doing things that the humans aren't necessarily involved in, because you're moving at machine speed. But the humans got to be in a position to say, okay, let's yes, do this, or no, don't do that. As opposed to human in the loop applies to me. It's like, okay, AI is off doing its thing, and every now and then it does a pulse check with the human. Hey, how we doing? Not good. Stop. No, we're not going to stop. So.
Well, we got a busy week. You and I are both getting on planes tomorrow to go to Barcelona. So MWC earnings next week will be MongoDB, Broadcom, CrowdStrike will come out. And then, we have all kinds of other coverage from the team. The AI trust and cyber resilience content themes are going great. We got crypto trailblazers booming here, AI leaders booming. We got a ton of prep coming in for the big data world, the data layer, agentic. So a lot of great content coming out, Dave. So got a busy week.
You mentioned CrowdStrike. That stock is getting crushed. Cybersecurity stocks are getting, hit with the SaaS apocalypse. I don't see it. I don't see. I think security is somewhat insulated from all this. Yeah, it's SaaS, but it's SaaS modeled. I mean, they've got data, they've got threat intelligence. I think they're in good position.
I mean, the SaaS apocalypse has not arrived. The AI collapse hasn't arrived. The productivity boom hasn't fully arrived, but the capital cycle is very real, big time. I mean, we are in the build phase, not the payoff phase at this point. So I think, your prediction of ROI is very real. Building, getting wins, showing the value, getting the adoption to Floyer's model around his numbers makes total sense. The more you do, the more you learn, the better you get, the better you use the tooling and the platforms, the better you are as a worker, builder, creator, whatever. So, well, Dave, we'll kick it off next week. Maybe we do the pod next week in Barcelona.
Yeah, let's do that. I want to do my breaking analysis and the CUBE pod next week if we can.
All right. Well, we'll see you.
Maybe we'll combine the two.
We'll see you in Barcelona. Yeah, maybe we'll do a hybrid. Maybe we'll do a breaking analysis CUBE pod in one, a twofer.
Let's try that.
All right.
Safe
Have a great weekend.
There. All right.
All right. Thanks everyone.
See you guys. Bye.